Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this latest presentation by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Today's webinar is an update on the changes to the INIS portal for importers. We'll be looking at common mistakes, lessons learned, what happens when people are non-compliant in relation to the documentation needed. We have a number of different speakers. We've got Sheehy from our IMT division. We've got Will Sheehan, Ruth Sanders, and Micheál Cuddihy, who will all be speaking on the products of animal origin side of things. We've got Colin Murtagh on the plant health side of things, and we will do a questions and answers session at the end of all of the presentations. Just a couple of other pieces of information before we start. I know some of you have already undertaken tours of the port, and they are available and they are ongoing. You might talk to your representative organisations in relation to those. Those commenced last autumn, and they'll be continuing for the next while, just so people can get familiar with the setup down there now. The other thing that I need to mention to you, you can ask questions throughout this presentation. What you do is you look at the questions tab. You'll see a tab up in the corner of your screen. If you look at the questions tab, go into it and type in your questions, and we will look at some of those at the end of the session. And anyone who doesn't get their question answered today will have their question answered by email, because sometimes questions that are asked may be very specific, they may be very detailed, and we might not be in a position to answer them today. So I think without any further delay, I think we can go to our first speaker, Sheehy, who is from our IMT division, and he's going to update us on changes to the portal.
You see my screen there?
Yes, Ray. Can indeed, Ray. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, folks. We're going to just run through, really, I suppose, the INIS, the registered portal, what it can do, and the benefits of using the imports portal. So, just look at that. So I suppose, what is the registered portal? Well, it's a simple and fast way to log in to DAFM and to notify the department of your planned imports that are subject to phytosanitary import checks and inspections. It also then allows you to, sorry, just bring me a sec. Allows you to upload information and documents that might be required. Okay. So where can you find the imports portal? Well, you can go to the agfood.ie website, which will bring you straight into the portal if you're a registered portal or if you're a registered user. If not, then you can visit the gov.ie agriculture Brexit, and that'll give you details then on the import process and how to register if you haven't already done so. Okay. So I suppose, can I use the registered portal? Yes. So the registered portal is available, and it's available for the following commodities. So it's animal products, food of non-animal origin, which is pesticide residues, forestry, live animals, plant and horticulture, and the intention then for organic imports, we'll be looking to have that live over the next month or two, all being well. I suppose the benefits of using the registered portal, again, we're automatically populating some of the company details, including email, phone number, etc., and contacts. It gives you the option then to view all your previous applications. It also gives you the option to search by the applications if you want to bring a specific application, and we'll view that now shortly, because we will just demo the screens. It allows you to view the last 5 updates or so that have been made on your application, specifically on the home screen. And obviously then you can dig into those applications if you wish then. It also then, and I suppose this is one of the changes that we brought in recently, it allows you to actually the communications between DAFM portal inspectors and the importers through what's known as action requests. So essentially, if there's an issue with the import, an action request can be created. That'll show you how to what you need to do, whether it's send in a document, and there's an upload document facility there, or whether it's just an information request, whether maybe it's a request to do with the MRN number or the shed number, and then that can be just a comment that can be typed and submitted back in, and that's fed back into the DAFM system and will be dealt duly by the import staff then. And you also have a link which can bring you out to traces. So if you click on the shed, it'll open a new window within the application, and you can actually log into traces and view your shed details from traces as well. So it's just to give you an option to move out there. And again, we'll see that then during the demo. So what I'll do is now just essentially, I think it'll be easier then really to go through some of the screens and show you the functionality that's available to different users. So essentially, when you come into Ag Food, you'll have your AGR number. You'll have received a PIN in the post, and it'll ask for obviously for three digits from the PIN numbers, and then whatever you've typed in as your own password there. So once we log on to the portal, okay. So this is essentially the home page that we land in. Some of the details then, the summary of all your applications. So the number you've submitted so far, the number that are currently in progress, the number completed, the number rejected. And if you click on any of these links, then it'll bring you into all your submitted applications. Going back to the home page, and we have the action requests. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So if you have sent in an import declaration, and there has been an issue with it, then an action request is sent in, and you'll receive an email out to you then. So when you log into the portal, you see action requests. So if there's any outstanding tasks, it'll be in this action request pad. You click on the actions to open the application. So we'll see this one here. We're looking for the type of request as a document request. So it'll either be a document request or an information request. So we click on the application. We see the application, the active actions requests. So this is the request date and time. The type of request is document request, action required, and then request. So it's this one's to do with an airways bill or bill of lading. So again, if we just want to reply, we click on the click reply button, and we see here then, okay, again, it was required by, when it was required by, the request is whatever comments. This will be the comments that are entered by the inspector and sent it out to you. So if it was maybe upload document, or it'll be something relevant to the query there. And if in this case we're looking for an airways bill, so we just add the file, locate the bill on your PC, hit open. You'll see that the attachment is gone there, and then once you've got that, you can either add in comments, and submit, and you'll get your reply successfully submitted. And we go back out to the home page, and you'll see then that action request has been removed from the screen then, because you've dealt with that then. That's returned back into DAFM to be dealt with. Similarly with the information requests. If you go in, you'll have a look, then you'll see there's an active action request. And again, this one, because it's an information that we're looking for, there's no option here to add add a document, because it's only an information request. So again, this is where you'll just enter your reply initially, whatever that is, and if you have any additional comments, then you can add them in here as well there. And we submit the request, and then that's submitted. And we'll see once the action request is submitted, it's gone from your summary details for that particular import declaration. And if you go to the home page, you'll see then there's no active request there. So that deals kind of with the correspondence that can go between the department and the registered importers. What we have is, well, then we'll have then the home page, the last updates there. So you'll see then the last updates that we made to the applications actually created from the INIS portal, and that when it was created and so on. So you'll see the last 5 updates associated with that then. Other on the the quick search then. So if you know then that you have an inspection ID, so this is the ID that's allocated to each import declaration. This is allocated. This will be unique to each case then, or simply you'd have the shed or the MRN. So if you want to just do a quick search on say 108.111, and you'll see it'll just bring up the details of the particular cases that have this number in it then. So it gives the importer an opportunity to search by either application ID, shed number, or even MRN number. And what you can do is then you can just click the button here then, and if you want to open your application details. Okay. And again, within the application list, we have the options then as well of seeing all the applications. And again, you can search by, again, the application number. So if you start, we put in let's see, just okay. So just read the individual cases. If you know the shed number or the MRN number, again, you can enter or say the shed number on this screen. Again, it'll just book any case with that shed number as well there. So again, it's just a quick way of searching through your applications. What we will be looking to introduce as well, and kind of if we have a look at the when we submit a new application, okay, so we can step through the process here of submitting a new application as well. So again, we don't have the you don't have to put in the personal contact details when you're submitting a new application because they're already stored when you registered with the department. So if we were to start the submission process and put in the case. So again, the country dispatch, it deplots the UK at the top of the list because at the moment that's where most of our imports are coming from. But again, we have a list of all the other countries, and if you start typing in, it'll default down to the country and point of arrival, means of transport, companies, and then the commodity type. Then, so as I said, at the moment we've animal products, pesticides, forestry, live animals, plant and horticulture, and organics to come. So once we pick the relevant commodity, then again we need to enter the details for that. So again, we're animal products, we're looking for the MRN, the shed, and then we're looking for the uploaded shed and the health cert. So there's different requirements for the different commodities. If we to enter a so you can see actually I entered the shed where I should enter the MRN, but you got this red box around you here telling you that's an error. So it wouldn't let you submit the declaration unless the MRN is actually in the correct format. You see here that the box has gone blue when you add the correct format. Again, if I just go back a space, it's gone red, and again I'd say that wouldn't allow you to enter the details. So then we just need to attach the relevant shed and the health cert. Okay, and these are the optional documents here as well that we can upload. Anything with the asterisk beside it is a mandatory document, and again you wouldn't be able to submit an application without submitting or uploading either the shed or the health cert for animal products. Again, it's cases accepting the terms and conditions and then submitting the application. And I suppose because you're registered, then there is no requirement to enter the capture number, which can be quite tedious at times. So then once you finish the submission, you can either make another declaration or return to the main menu. return to the main menu, then you'll see then that the last updates as to creation of this inspection signed off from the portal. So I suppose the benefit of this is that you get to see all your applications. You get to submit all, to see the cases that have the last updates. You can deal with your action requests as well. What we will be looking to add in as well in the application list here, at the moment, if we go in, it's just a registered email address for the company that's registered with DAFM. What we will be looking to do when you go to submit a new application, we will be adding in a new functionality that will show the submitted or the company email address, but also give you the option, I suppose, as to add in additional email address. So if you have somebody specifically dealing with, say, animal products in your company, or a specific company, if you deal with multiple companies, then that email address can be used for comments. And then when we get into the application list, we'll be able to then filter through here then by the registered user, either by the registered user email address or by the additional email address that we've added. So I suppose that's the main kind of functionality that's within the application. As I say, it kind of gives you the option of submitting multiple applications without having their personal details. And more importantly, I suppose you can communicate with the department in terms of the action requests, and you can search on your applications as well then. Within then I suppose really to sum up then what we need to do, we'll just make sure that you're registered as an importer. So as I say, if you're not already registered, then go to gov.ie, agriculture for Brexit, and that'll bring you in, and there's details there on how to register. And make sure then that your submissions, your timely and accurate submissions, so to avoid any issues. And what you need to have then, again, we have your shed number and your import declaration number, which is your MRN number, and any required certain supporting documents that are required. Obviously then to have your registered, your PIN and password. And if you're using your case identity, that's the unique number that you will get in the email when you submit the application. So you can either search by that, or you can use the MRN or the shed to search as well when in the portal. And so that's essentially the application as it is, and the functionality that's there within the INIS imported portal. Thanks for your time, and I'll hand back to Tom.
Thank you very much for that, Ray. Our next speaker will be Will Sheehy, who's a veterinary inspector at our Import Controls Division, and he'll be going through some of the common mistakes that they're coming across on people's applications. You're muted there, Will, I think.
Can you, perfect. Can you see my screen okay there now?
We can see your screen perfectly, and we can hear you perfectly.
Great stuff. So, hi everyone, my name is William Sheehy, and I'm a veterinary inspector down in Dublin Port. So today I'm just going to run through a few topics. So I'm just going to look back at the past 14 months that we've had at Dublin Port, highlight some issues that are still occurring on a daily basis at the port, and just some pointers to help you get your products through Dublin Port as quickly as possible. I'll also touch on private attestations and some points on the new model health certificates. So over the last 14 months, we have validated roughly 45,000 sheds from the UK alone. In our ICOD inbox, I looked at over the weekend, and there was 58,000 communications into that inbox alone. I suppose what it shows is that the amount of work that RFCs and all at the Import Controls Division have done over the last 14 months to keep the products flowing from the UK to Ireland. Obviously, the 1st of January last year, we had the big changes, and then 4 months down the line, we had some big changes in terms of legislation coming at a particular challenging time. These were the changes to composite products and the addition of the requirements for private attestations, etc. Over the last few months, I suppose we have seen a significant improvement in what we are receiving. However, there are still recurring issues that are causing delays on arrival. I'm just going to go through those some of these practical issues now, and hopefully you will gain something from it. So one of the big ones really is the prior notification. So according to Commission Implementing Regulation 2019-1013, it's a legal requirement to give prior notification 24 hours in advance of arrival. So that means raising a shed on trace NT. I suppose this is very important for, obviously it's a legal requirement, but it's also very important to allow us to do our documentary checks prior to the consignment arriving into Dublin. This gives us a chance to identify any issues and to seek clarification from yourselves prior to the consignment arriving. It is also quite important very important when you have other agency risks on in the trailer also. So if you have like fishery products that require us to process and for the fisheries to process, you need to get these documents into us well in advance. I see day on day consignments arriving in with issues not being addressed or not being clarified, and these are leading to delays. So as you say, sooner issues we can identify the issues, the quicker the resolution, and that will reduce the delays at the port for you. Another point I want to make really is about the shed Ps in the document submission. So again, what is it? 45,000 sheds were submitted last year, and the vast majority are compliant. But there are still recurring issues around the accuracy of information that's submitted. Just please make sure that when you're submitting documents that are the shed P, that the weights, the quantities, the CN codes, product descriptions all match that of the health certificate that accompanies the consignment. Please ensure that the establishment of origin that you select is for the right activity. So if you're importing meat products, please ensure that it's the processing plant of the meat product selected here. When you're uploading documents, health certificates or private attestations, just please make sure that all information is legible. We will double check, or a part of our job, I suppose, is to double check all this information. If there's any issues or if we can't make out any bits of information, we have to email, and again, that just causes delays on arrival. Another point is sealing of containers. So provided documents are in early and they contain the appropriate information, sealed containers, trailers are routed to T7 for a seal check. This is a very fast process and allows quick transit through the port. This vast majority are released from T7 after seal check, and I say this is the best way to get your product out of port as quick as possible. Consignments which don't have the seal are diverted to T10 for full identity inspection, and this involves us taking the product off the load and cross-checking the health certificate or private attestation with the product that's on the load, matching batch numbers, etc. So full IDs take at least 30 minutes, but could take much longer, again, depending on the complexity of the load that's being consigned. Health certificate location. So again, we come into the office every day, and there's always consignments detained because the certificates can't be located or weren't able to be located on arrival, or the driver didn't know where they were. So as per Article 50 of the OCR, official certificates must accompany consignments. So please just make sure that you put systems in place with the exporting companies to have, to know where these are located on arrival. This just avoids additional communications we have to make with you guys and reduce the amount of delays and detentions of your consignments on arrival. Okay, so these were just 4 practical enough points, but again, they're consistently, the ones that are causing delays on arrival. Next, I just want to talk on private attestations. Obviously, these came in last year, and they're required for low-risk, shelf-stable composite products not containing meat. There are certain ones that are derogated from official controls, and the requirements for these can be found in 2021 630. These must meet the requirements in this, and the CN codes must be on the annex to that regulation. Private attestations that are subject to control must be accompanied with a shed P and the private attestation. and must come to us for inspections on arrival. Prior to submission of private attestations, again, just make sure all fields that are available on the private attestation are completed. Make sure that the batch numbers, weights, number of packages are all completed on the private attestation, and just make sure that these match the Shed P details also. Again, this is all just to help you getting your product through the port as fast as possible. Make sure the documents are signed and dated with qualification and title of the importer. Again, this is often a section that is not completed and results in delays on arrival. Useful documents are available on the link importing composite products. That's a guidance document in that link there. And also on the bottom of the private attestation, there's footnotes for completion. So if you're unsure about what needs to be filled in a particular section, just please refer to those notes. One point I just want to make about one of the sections, section 2, part 5, for those of you who do fill out composite product private attestations. When you're filling out this section, just make sure that, for example, if it's the approved establishment of the processed product of animal origin. So, for example, if you're importing mayonnaise, it's the establishment or approved establishment where the eggs were processed. This is a common issue that we see on private attestations with different numbers and different names put in this section. Please ensure that it's the approved establishment given on trace ID for that product, for that processed product of animal origin. There is a slightly updated version of the private attestation, and that's available on the Composite Products Gov.ie website also. We're accepting the older format until the 31st of March. There isn't too many major changes. There's just changes to the way that the list of ingredients has to be submitted, and there's some changes to the dairy product treatment attestations in point 210 also. So next point is the new model health certificates. So the new model health certificates are detailed in 2020-2235. Again, there's a transition period. The transition period has been extended to the 30th of April 2020, where we will be accepting the old model health certificates. After this point, those in 2020-2235 will need to be submitted. Into 2020-2235, it's just I just want to point out a good chapter there, chapter 4, which has useful notes for completion of the health certificates. For example, this is from that chapter, and it points out that with in part I-7, the country of origin for products must be the country where the goods were produced, manufactured, or packaged. This is a slight change. This is a change from the older model health certificates. In the case of triangular trade, where there's more than one country, third country, where there's more than one third country of origin, a separate certificate must be completed for each country of origin that is being consigned. Within that new regulation, there was an addition of a new health certificate, the storage TCPao health certificate. So this certificate is for the triangular trade. So what it's designed for is to facilitate the certification of EU origin products of animal origin or composite products that are unloaded, stored, and reloaded in the UK for export back to the EU. So the triangular trade, so this is if you are importing a composite product that was produced, manufactured in France, that has been exported to the UK, has been warehoused and stored there, and is recertified back to Ireland. This model health certificate can only be used for human consumption. Again, we're seeing a good few companies use this cert already, but there are certain companies I don't think have started to use it yet, but it is definitely a useful one. I'll point out why now. So as you see, like the model of the health certificate, the attestations that have to be filled out are a lot more straightforward. A lot simpler to complete compared to the composite product model health certificates or the meat product health certificates that also have to be or the other option, I suppose. So in I-7, which is the country of origin, this is the country of origin of where the product was produced. So as I said, if you were importing products that were initially produced in France, were exported to UK for storage and re-exported to Ireland, the country of origin here must be France. So it's the country where the product was produced and packaged. As we see, there's a lot of, there could be a lot of countries of origin, per consignment for these triangular trade goods. So these, as I say, all require a separate health certificate. However, it is permitted to allow more than one health certificate on a Shed P for these health certificates. That's where the goods of the same establishment of origin and the same establishment of destination in Ireland. The country of origin on the shed should be UK in the box I11, and the establishment of origin in box I15 should be the approved cold store, registered warehouse where the goods were dispatched to the EU. I just point out again that the multiple health certs for shed is not allowed for other model health certificates, only for this storage TCPao health cert. There's a trader notice available on the following link for further details. So that's all from me. If you have any questions, I'll answer them in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, William. Our next presenter is Ruth Sanders, who will be taking us through some of the policy aspects in relation to today.
Good afternoon. Yeah, just get my screen up.
Yes, Ruth, your screen is up.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So good afternoon. My name is Ruth Sanders. I work in the Border Control Post policy area. And today I will be discussing the legal obligations which are applicable to the import of animals and animal products from a third country into the EU.
Ruth, you're not showing your presentation. You're just showing your screen.
Apologies else. That's up now, yeah?
No, not for us.
Yeah, I can see it now. Official control regulations, etc., etc.
Okay, I can't see it.
Nope, I'll try again.
Yeah, I can see that now.
It's working perfect. Great. Now, perfect. So the OCR, or the Official Controls Regulation, is the overarching legislation on official controls that provides a basis for harmonised rules across all EU member states. And there's a number of articles within this OCR which are applicable to the import of products into the EU. So the list I've provided here isn't exhaustive, but they're the most relevant articles really in terms of import of animals and animal products. And a number have already been discussed by William in the previous presentation. So we have Article 47, and this is a key one. This discusses the animals and animal products that are subject to official controls. And from that, we have this regulation 2021-632, which is what we term our positive list. And this positive list provides a really detailed list of all the animals, the animal products, and their relevant CN codes, which are subject to official controls, and also provides details on what ones are exempt under each of those CN codes. So we strongly advise you to reference this list to determine whether controls apply to the product that you're importing. We have Article 49 then, and Article 49 states that the competent authority must perform controls upon arrival of the goods at the BCP. So goods that require official controls cannot leave the port or airport without those official controls being performed, and to do so is considered an illegal movement. Article 50 then discusses the official documents that are required to accompany animals and animal products. So for example, the official health cert or the private attestation that William covered previously. Article 56 then details the operator's obligation to submit the common health entry document, which again William went through, and this shed must provide the information necessary to the competent authority for the immediate and complete identification of the consignment and its destination, and the information provided on that shed must match the official health cert that accompanies the goods. Article 56 also discusses the provision of pre-notification to the BCP. We then have Articles 66 and 67, and these detail what the competent authority must do with non-compliant consignments. And this includes all non-compliances, including failure to present for official controls or failure to submit a shed. And then we have Title 7 at the end, and this title provides options for enforcement action that may be taken against non-compliant operators. So Statutory Instrument 656 of 2020, this is Irish law that gives effect to the EU law within Ireland. And we can see from Part 3, this screenshot on the right-hand side, that we have two very specific regulations. One, the first is that a person who imports an animal or animal product from a third country, other than in accordance with the EU law, is committing an offence. And also that a person shall not have in his or her possession or under his or her control an animal or animal product that has been imported, again, other than in accordance with EU law. And we also have a definition of what an animal product details. So these Irish regulations confer legal obligations on any person involved in the import process and who at any stage of that import process are in possession of or have under his or her control an animal or animal product. So as the operator responsible for the consignment, or if you're the person carrying or in control of or in possession of an animal or animal product at the time of or following entry into Ireland, you have legal responsibilities to ensure that the product or the animal is or was imported in compliance with EU law. So as per the statutory instrument, there are a number of regulations. So if you have in your possession or under your control an animal or animal product, and you do not provide the required pre-notification, or you do not present it to the BCP upon arrival at that BCP in Ireland, or you do not complete a shed where required by law, you are committing an offence under Irish law. And just to note again, the shed or the Common Health Entry document, it is a legal certificate, and signing a shed as the operator responsible for the consignment confers legal obligations. In addition, under this SI, if you remove an animal or animal product which is imported from a third country from the BCP without it being accompanied by a finalised shed, and what we mean by a finalised shed is one that has been validated by the competent authority following completion of official controls, you're committing an offence under Irish law. And again, if you have in your possession or under your control an animal or animal product that was not imported in compliance with EU law at any stage of that process, again, you're committing an offence. So under the SI, anyone who's carrying or in possession of or in control of an animal or animal product, not just the operator responsible for the consignment on the shed, for a product that was illegally imported, is committing an offence and may be subject to enforcement action. Under EU law, the competent authority are required that, to insist that the animal or animal product must be returned immediately to the BCP of entry for official controls, where a decision will be made on the outcome of that product. In addition, the operator responsible or the operator in possession or under the control of the consignment will also be subject to enforcement action, as will be detailed in the next presentation. So thank you very much for your attention. There is more information on these rules on the website at gov.ie under the section Trading in Animals and Animal Products. And I'll be available to answer any questions in the Q&A session at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Our next speaker is Micheál Cuddihy, who is an SVI here at the department. Micheál will be taking us through some aspects of non-compliance. Now, I think you're muted there, Micheál.
No, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you fine, and all we need to do is see your screen, and we can do that now. You can just go into slideshow. Very good. I'll get out of
Is that okay? Yep. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. As Tom said, I'm Micheál Cuddihy. I'm an SVI in Dublin Port here in the implementation side of things. And I'm just following on from what William and Ruth have spoken about, some operational issues, and Ruth gave a good overview of the legal requirements. And I'm just going to put some context on that in the context of how we address non-compliances here at the BCP, and just to maybe review back on the year 2021 and how we're going to approach things in 2022. So as we're all well aware, on the 1st of January, there was a huge change in the import requirements from the UK. Previously, it had been roll on, roll off, no stops at the port, drive straight through, and then overnight, UK became a third country. All the documentary requirements, same as China, Thailand, USA, and so on. And to add to the complexity, rather than being low traffic, which arrives in the port, stops, and is further processed, this was this was row traffic, which could just drive straight out. So as you'd expect, there were significant issues in for everyone to get up to speed in this in the early days. DAFM had done a lot of work prior to the 1st of January in building awareness and preparations for Brexit, as it did a lot of businesses. And throughout the early days in particular, there was a lot of engagement with stakeholders from the BCP, from policy and so on, in these new rules and building awareness and creating an environment where compliance was easier. As you can imagine, at the start of the year, one area in particular that had its challenges with documentation, getting used to all the new the sheds, the health certs, and so on, and along with the change in April, that did add an extra layer of complication to that. The pre-notification period was an issue at the start of 21, for sure, and also, and Ruth has mentioned there about the presentation of consignments to the BCP for checks. So this is consignments of goods that are required to have official controls performed on them, making sure, number one, that they present to the correct facility in Dublin Port or the airport or so on, but also that they stop before they leave the port. So the approach taken to the non-compliances, first of all, to identify them, to detect them, to establish that they're there or not, to establish the nature of the non-compliance, for example, the severity of it, what risk does it pose, does it affect the certification of the load, will it have follow-on effects on certification of products further down the line. So when something is identified, we'll notify the operator. We look at the risk, we'll try to remove or mitigate the risk through various measures, and then it'll follow on with a sanction as appropriate. So obviously non-compliances will vary from very minor to more serious, and the follow-up from that will be linked to the seriousness of the non-compliance. And we do keep a record of all non-compliances in the BCP, and that's to enable us to see patterns, to see any repeat non-compliances. If there's a continuous pattern, that will be fed into our decision-making process. And an important part of it is preventing them happening in the first place, but when we do identify them, prevent recurrence. We have had extensive stakeholder engagement throughout the year, through webinars, through direct engagement, through the website and so on, in order to draw awareness to requirements, and if there's any difficulties, to see what's causing the difficulties, and to see if that can be addressed. We do talk to operators that might have had issues and ask them to show us how they can improve or how they can prevent such an occurrence from happening again. So that would be improvement plans, and that's been quite successful. And we do monitor for recurrence. So if there's been an issue in one particular area, one particular type of consignment, or one particular operator, we can keep an eye on that just to make sure that there aren't continuous problems with it, and if there are, that they can be addressed. So non-compliances in 2021. So as the year progressed, the profile of non-compliance has changed. I mean, at the start of the year, there were issues with documentation, and also some again when the regulations changed in April, and there's also issues with the 24-hour notification period. fortunately, and due to, in fairness to everyone involved in the trade, a lot of work has gone in, and there has been reduced problems and reduced non-compliances across several areas, and most likely down to greater experience, greater expertise being built up since the 1st of January. The supply chains appear to have built in the allowance for the logistics around getting certificates, providing the required notification. So that's the documentation, the notification issues. The issue about consignment presentation to the BCP, there's been considerable work done in this area by ourselves, by other state agencies in the port, such as Revenue, and also by the trade. It is a resource-intensive area, so if something, Ruth mentioned, if something does leave the port, if a commodity which requires an official control leaves before it has official control, like, we are obliged to direct it to be returned back to us to carry out the controls and to follow up as necessary. That's a very resource intensive for us, but also for operators, hauliers, retailers, and so on. That has to be, the truck needs to be turned around if it's the case, or product needs to be put back in the truck and sent back up. So it's something that I think everyone wants to avoid. And in fairness, for most operators, it's not an issue. There are some agents that have had issues in this area on more than one occasion, so that's a concern for us. And we are looking to sort of focus on preventing any loads leaving the port without checks. There's a lot of different reasons it may happen, but the bottom line is the product isn't. It's essentially an illegal import, and the product does need to be returned to us. There is a significant amount of follow-up that will have to happen afterwards. Just staying on this issue, and it's just to go back to the points that were mentioned earlier. When the list of products that need controls are available, when you're importing, you should know where your product, what category it stands in, and if it needs official controls, it must present to the BCP of first arrival in the union, or into the single market. So in the case of something destined for Northern Ireland, if it arrives in Dublin Port, it needs to have its SBS checks, its official controls done in Dublin Port. If it's arriving in Dublin Port and going to a warehouse or something, it needs to have the controls done at Dublin Port before it's moved to any kind of a storage facility or anything like that. So it's very simple. At the frontier, if that's the airport or the port, the arrival of the frontier of the single market, it needs to have the check done, regardless of where it's moving on to in the single market after that. If you're carrying animal products or animals that require checks, you must present to the BCP. It sounds very straightforward, but it's important to bear in mind that there are other agencies that require checks to be done. So just so there's customs formalities to be done with Revenue, and there is a routing system in Dublin Port, and the routing system will tell you where you need to go based on what you've told the routing system. So if someone makes a mistake on their declaration and forget to declare that they have an SPS product on board, a product that needs a check, the system won't know to route them for a check. So you might get a green exit the port routing, but you still have goods on board that require a check. So if you're unsure, you need to contact us before you leave. It might be an honest mistake that happened, but the rules still apply. And it's not a reasonable excuse to say that because we were, we had a green exit the port routing, we didn't turn up for checks. Very often that routing is a result of an error. So, you can't rely on an error for a reasonable excuse for leaving the port. It does happen that people are unsure about the category of their load, the status of their load. It might be a driver, the haulage company, or an RFC. They do contact us, or contact details, I mean, they're freely available. I think we have a good working relationship with the trade. So if you're stuck, you can phone us, email us when you're in the port, and we can give you an update. You know, we do have access to the H1 declarations and so on, so we can see that. It's similar to what we do with the yellow router products, where people contact to see if it needs a check. Responsibility, again, this is mentioned before, but the responsibility in these cases lies with a range of different people. There's no one can say, I wasn't told or I didn't know. The RFC does have legal obligations when they sign the shed. There are legal obligations there, but so does the haulier, haulage company, the driver, the retailer. You know, underlying all of the checks is the need to protect food standards and public health and animal health. So while it might not seem that urgent in product coming from the UK, we do see cold chain breakdowns. We do see other issues that have happened that would make food unsafe to eat if it hadn't presented for checks. So it is important that consignments are presented to us. We do treat bypassing the BCP and not presenting for checks as on first pass through the port as a serious issue. And we do follow up on all of these cases, and it is a key focus area for us in 2022 to bring this down, and you know, to address any errors or issues that are leading to consignments leaving the port before they're checked. And in any event, and that does leave, will be called back. Just on the issue of responsibility, it's already been mentioned, the regulations, but it's just this is taken from the SI on the obligation to present, and you can see in part C there, 11C, anyone who is under his or her control sells, supplies or transports animal product referred to in paragraph A commits an offence. So it's just to underscore the fact that it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that goods are presented at the BCP. And the bottom line is, and this is something that can be checked easily by RFCs or by anyone access to the shed and traces. If a good doesn't have a validated shed, you need to see why it shouldn't be leaving the BCP. So that's something that can be checked by agents, by anyone access to the shed for that consignment. You know, the shed is updated and validated while the good is in the port before it leaves the DAFM infrastructure there in the port. So if you find out something is leaving, or if you know something is a shed and it arrives to you and it's not validated, there's a problem there, you need to get in touch with us. You know, there is, it's not hard to identify this stuff. You know, it should be identified before it gets too far down the road. Possible actions for non-compliance. So there's a range of different actions. This is just a few of them taken from the SI and Article 138, I think, of the OCR, list them in further detail. But I mean, what you'll probably be familiar, recall to the BCP for decision. Consignment may be rejected, you know, so it'll have to go for redispatch, destruction, or special treatment. One that can happen is, and we've spoken to the FSAI about this, is an official recall. If there's any issue in getting it back, we can ask for an official recall, which will include notices in the media and so on, name the product and the operator. So that is something that can be done for these type of products. If there's any issues for any particular reason, it can lead to increased official controls on future consignments through the BCP for a particular operator. So if an operator is having an issue across any documents or their ID checks or presentation, that can and likely will lead to increased official controls. So William mentioned earlier about how, for example, the seal check is the quickest way to the port to get your seal check, have your load sealed, have your documents in time and in order. But enhanced controls may mean you get pulled for more ID checks, which will slow up your consignments going through the port. In the OCR, that allows for suspension of operator licenses for certain categories of goods or for certain roles. That can be suspended, which could affect the operations. Fixed penalty notices are there in the SI, and also prosecution is one of the actions possible to take in the SI. But the bottom line is, dealing with non-compliances causes delays for everyone. It's directing resources where they shouldn't need to be directed, and avoidance of the non-compliances and prevention is in everyone's interest, and in the interest of the operators in getting goods through the port as quickly as possible. So we look back earlier on 2021, earlier in the presentation, looking to 2022, and currently we have set up systems to address non-compliance we've come across so far, and we're continuing to do that, and we will build upon that. As I said, in the SI and the OCR, there's various actions available to address non-compliances. We do look for what we do to be proportionate and effective. So, for example, like a minor clerical error that doesn't inherently compromise the certification or risk that a consignment poses is very different to a serious non-compliance that has a large public health or food safety risk, along with evidence of deliberate non-compliance. They're two different things, and they'll be looked at, and there's different tools to address them. Issues such as repeated non-compliance do compound, serious of a non-compliance, and that'll be looked at as well when looking at each case. In 2022, we will be looking at taking a broader range of actions to address non-compliances than we had in 2021. In particular, we are focused on different things, as I mentioned, to making sure goods present for official controls will be an area of focus. So we have done a lot of work with education and awareness on that, and we'll be looking to build on what we've done and to make sure that the actions we take are proportionate in response to it, in particular repeat cases in this area. So I suppose thanks for your attention. And just one thing, it's kind of it's not always the most pleasant issue to have to talk about, but now is as good a time as any, and it is important to make people aware of what happens in the port, but also to acknowledge that there's been an awful lot of work done by a whole range of businesses in getting up to speed with the regulations, and with continuing their business through the increased regulation that Brexit has brought about, and to acknowledge that businesses have been very proactive in this area, and a lot of good work has been done, and we're always there to work on this issue. And if there's any issues, you can contact us at the BCP, and if there's any questions on this particular presentation, I'm available to take questions at the end of the session. So thanks again for your time, and I'll leave it back to the panel.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Micheál, for that very good and very comprehensive presentation. We now come to our last speaker before the questions and answer session. That will be Colin Murtagh. We've had a lot of focus on products of animal origin, and Colin is going to take us through plants and products of plant origin.
Okay, guys, can you see my screen there?
Can see the screen, but if you just, there you go. And if you just go to slideshow, just to give a, there you go. You're all set.
Perfect. Yeah, lovely stuff. Cheers, guys. So, quick introduction there again. My name is Colin Murtagh. I'm an assistant agriculture inspector here in Plant Health. And today I'm just going to go through the basics really of the sanitary and phytosanitary essentials for import of plant products. So I'm going to start really with an overview of what I'll talk about. So I'm going to go into the main two sheds really that we require in Plant Health. First of them is a shed PP, that is for the import of plant and plant products. And the second is a shed D, that is for the import of food of non-animal origin which have pesticide residue risks. I'll also take a quick run through the basic traces requirement for plant health side of things, and also basic requirements from plant health side of things in the imports portal. So first step really involved in the import plant products is making sure that you're registered with the department. So all importers of plant products must be registered with DAFM. Applications cannot be completed without a PHR. So yeah, at certain part of the import portal, you will be asked for a PHR number. Now, what I've done on this slide is I've included a link. This will bring you through to the gov.ie website, and that will bring you to a page where it shows you the registration and procedures for import of plant and plant products. So this will actually give the basic documents and emails needed to register with the department for the import of plant and plant products. Now, if there are issues navigating the website there, we can go in on the dedicated plant health email inbox, so you can get us on this at any time, 24/7, and it is phbipport@agriculture.gov.ie for any plant health related queries. Once you've received your PHR number, you'll then just have to register on traces. So the procedure on this really is that you'll have to just go in and add in basic details, and then you can request authorization from ourselves. That will then come through to us, and from there we will be able to validate you as a user on our system. Now I've just included the link here just on the screen, so if you go into gov.ie again, this will give you all the instructions you need to register with traces. So once we've validated you on the system, you will then be able to create a shed PP or a shed D. This will all depend on the type of product you're bringing in, as I stated earlier. But once you go to create your shed, it'll bring you through to this screen here. Now, one issue that we did see popping up over the last year is selecting the tabs at the top there. You'll see shed D or shed PP. So if you do create the wrong shed for the commodity, we will have to go back to you and ask you to create the right one, which can lead to delays. So I won't have time to go through the whole creating of shed PP today, but my colleague Joe actually did a presentation on this, about a 17-minute presentation, goes through the A to Z really of creating a shed PP, and it is on the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine YouTube channel. So just some of the common errors we've seen really over the last 13 or 14 months. Just to start with there, make sure that you've completed all aspects of your application. So the areas I went through there, making sure that you have a plant health registration number, that you're registered on traces, that you have the shed PP or shed D created, and that you have the relevant information uploaded to the DAFM portal. We do ask for 24 hours notice on this, same as the veterinary side really, just to make sure that if there are any issues, that we can solve them before the driver comes and reduce the delays that he would have if there is issues with paperwork. The second point there is just clerical errors. So an example there is when goods shared in the customs declaration or invoice are not included on the phytosanitary cert. Now, documentation is generally the biggest issue we would see coming through. All the documents must match, so when you upload your SAD document, your phytocert, your invoice, and your bill of lading, just to make sure that the weights and box counts match across all of them. I think that was mainly the biggest issue we saw on imports last year, as if there are discrepancies, then we will have to ask for updates to these documents, and that will, of course, hold the load up longer than we'd like. Third point there is in relation to UK re-export phytosanitary certs. These must be accompanied by the third country phyto cert. So in the case that commodities are brought into the UK for further re-export to Ireland, UK may issue a re-export phyto. So in this case, if the goods came into the UK from Peru, we would need a copy of the original Peruvian phytosanitary cert as well as the re-export phyto. That was quite a common issue last year. So the last point on this one then is additional declarations. So some of the commodities of plant health interest actually have special requirements. These are listed in the regulation under Annex 7. So if there are special requirements for some of these commodities, depending on the country they're coming from, there is a separate additional declaration box that is located on the phytosanitary cert. So these additional declarations must be stated on this phyto. If they're not, we will have to get amendments done to that, and once again, that will cause delays in freeing up consignment. So for food of non-animal origin with a pesticide residue risk, a Shed D will need to be created for these. So there are a number of commodities that fall under this bracket. You'll see the regulation number there, 2021/2246. There have been new additions to this since January, so it's important to get a look at that. Now, what I have put in on the second bullet there is a link to an information note which shows all of the commodities of interest. So for these commodities, depending on the case, a Shed PP may be required, but a Shed D will be required for these on traces. So an example of something that might need a Shed PP and a Shed D would be the likes of peppers from Turkey. Peppers are, of course, a plant product and are of interest to us, but they are also a pesticide risk, so we would require both a Shed PP and a Shed D for these. A separate application must be created on the Department Import Portal for Shed D commodities. So you would have seen this under step 4 on the upload one of these, but you have to select the food of non-animal origin pesticide residue. I know Ray did touch on this area, so you have to select one of them when you're creating a Shed D. So there are different brackets of commodities for pesticide residue. So there is Annex 1 and Annex 2 of the regulation. So under Annex 1, the documents that are required are the same as the documents that I alluded to there earlier for plant health. So that would be a SAD invoice, a phyto where necessary, and a bill of lading where necessary. Now, in addition to this, Annex 2 requires a health cert and results of pesticide residue analysis from the country of origin. So in the legislation that I did refer to there earlier, you will see Annex 2 commodities and Annex 1 commodities. It's worth getting familiar with these just to avoid hold-ups in documentation. For Annex 1 and Annex 2 commodities, these are subject to sampling and analysis, so this will be carried out on some consignments. You will be able to see frequencies of these inspections in Annex 1 and Annex 2 in the table in the legislation. So for these consignments that are selected for physical checks, these can't be released for free circulation until we receive results for the tests that were carried out on them. This is just so we make sure that they don't have a breach in EU pesticide residue legislation, as if we did release them before we got results back, they would be on shelves, so we must get results back for these before they can be released. So some of the common errors we would have seen over the last 13 or 14 months in relation to Shed D applications. So country of origin was one of them. So this country of origin for pesticides does refer to where the goods were originating from, grown, harvested or produced. So it's just important to get an understanding for that. As I mentioned earlier, Annex 1 and Annex 2, there are different documentary requirements. So for Annex 2 ones, you need to make sure that they do have a health cert and that there are pesticide residue analysis for these. So before they leave the UK, you need to make sure that this has been carried out on them and that a report and a result can be given for these, as this will go below up. As I stated there, these annexes, just be careful on these, they are subject to change. So these will be revised at EU level over time. This is mainly done just to take into account really new information in relation to new risks to human health in certain types of food. So really to finish up here, you can go on to the www.gov.ie/agriculture/Brexit. Also is an email address there and a phone number if there are any queries. Now, as I did say earlier, there is a dedicated plant health email. If there are any queries in relation to this, if you're not sure on certain commodities, you're as well to contact us before these are exported, just to make sure you have the correct documentation, as we don't want any holdups in commodities. So that email once again is phbiport@agriculture.gov.ie, and that is manned 24/7. So if you have any questions for us, we'll be able to answer them in the Q&A session of this.
Thank you very much, Colin. That's very helpful and very useful. We now come to the questions and answers session, but I have to say that our panel have already been extremely busy, because I see they've actually answered most of the questions in the question function that people have sent in. There are a couple remaining, so I'll try and get through those. One of them is in relation to prior notifications. One firm is having difficulties posting EHCs 24 hours in advance when they're transporting live animals. In other words, what they're saying is it's not always possible for them to post those EHCs 24 hours in advance due to maybe the changing situation with the animals themselves. I wonder, would one of our panelists like to take that one? Anyone? Maybe Mihal or Will or somebody on the animal side?
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so the prior notification really is to give us notification of the consignments that are coming into port to allow us to, get pre-notification, do the documentary checks. If that person has any particular issues, if they can email my address or Mihal, we can get back to them around the particular challenges they're having and can advise further.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Will. We have another one, which is one that comes up, I think, at probably every one of these webinars since I've been involved. What is the process in relation to goods traveling under groupage that are unsealed as they're mixed consignments within the load?
Yeah, so that depends on the risk. And it depends, I suppose, whether they have foils, if they've got aphids or shed peas. So what we do is we organise prior to the consignment coming in, if they've got risk from plant health and from if they've got risk from plant health, but also if they've got risk for ourselves in the product of animal origin side of things, we communicate prior to arrival, and that consignment will be given a channel via the custom system when the consignment is coming off the boat. So what I'd say is for that person, if you're consigning those loads, just please follow the channels which would be preset prior to arrival, and the inspections will be done from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Will. Maybe somebody else would like to take this one and let you off the hook.
Sorry, very briefly, Tom, excuse me. There's a question there from Amy Wilton, which seems to have me down as being the responder. So obviously I'm not in a position to do that. So maybe somebody could answer that. Can a customs clearance department complete INIS portal on behalf of the importer? If so, would this be using their login details to notify the arrival of the goods? Could you advise an alternative if this is not the case?
Yes, I actually replied to that, Bart, so I'm not quite sure why it's coming up with yourself, but I responded to Amy on that one.
Okay, there's just nothing in the text about that. There's nothing in the text area, the answer text area, but please go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. We just really only have one more, which is can a trader see the responses that they've sent through the INIS portal? Ray, I'm sorry, you're muted there. You're still muted, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, we seem to be having a difficulty with Ray's audio, but look, we'll engage to answer that one by email.
I may be able to answer that one, Tom. So,
Okay,
that option is now currently not available at the moment on that. So they won't be able to see any of the responses that they've sent through INIS. That information won't be displayed for them.
Okay. Okay, well, we actually seem to have got through all of the questions so far.
Excuse me, Tom. Sorry for the interruption. Apologies. Just one more time. There are two individuals had their hands up, so to speak. One Siobhan Harrington and one Ellen McCormick. I've unmuted them, but they're both self-muted. If one or either of them wanted to actually ask their question, having unmuted themselves, that would be just a remainder of the questions completed altogether.
Okay. Sorry, just bear with me for a second until I go into the attendees part. So
we're getting no response from them, so we'll just leave it at that. If they want to send in an email or something.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who doesn't get a response to their query here, they can obviously send us in an email in relation to that. The other thing, we did just get a question there now at the very end. Is this presentation going to be posted? Yes, it is. This will be put up on our YouTube channel sometime later this week, hopefully. And we will engage to send out to all of the people who registered for this a link to that, so that they're able to share that perhaps with colleagues who weren't able to come today. So I think that brings us to the conclusion of today's presentations. Thank you very much for your attendance. It's been a healthy turnout today. And I would just like to finish by thanking all of our speakers, Ray Sheehy, William Sheehan, Ruth Sanders, Micheál Cudahy, Colin Murtagh, and also Anne Carrick and Michael Evers, and everyone else who was involved, Bart, who kept us between the ditches today, technically. And thank you very much for joining us. And keep your eyes and ears open for further presentations. I'm sure we'll have them coming up soon. So thank you very much, everyone.